going on, everybody? So I'm going to be spitting some more truth today for you guys. You know, I've been in this hobby for, my license expired, and it was good for 5 years, so that expired, a year and a half or so ago. So I've been in the hobby for about 6-7 years now, and, I like everybody else, started out thinking that I needed a repeater to be able to talk to somebody on the GMRS spectrum until I found out about networking. So let me explain to people and why I don't recommend starting with a repeater, and unless you actually know that there are people in your area to talk to. If you're gonna spend, Google this shit, okay? I'm gonna spitball some numbers for you. All right, so a repeater needs key things, okay? It needs a good antenna, it needs a good feed line, and all of that you're looking at anywhere for an antenna, a good antenna for an actual true repeater antenna, especially if you're not the type that's hands-on, you're going to spend anywheres of upwards of 150 plus. That's the cheap end for a good true repeater antenna. Okay, then you're talking some coax cable. You're also looking at probably $30-$40 for that, and that's even the low end for that. And if you're able to put up a tower, if you can't put up anything over than 60 feet, unless you're up on top of a ridge, you're really not going to get too far. Everybody wants to start in this hobby, and they want to start with this mighty repeater, and I'm telling you, all it is a money pit. It's just a true money pit when you're actually dealing with a repeater. And then when you put it up, you got your fingers crossed that somebody is actually going to use it. And then once you have it up there for a couple years, and if nobody uses it, then what do? You throw it back up online and sell it? Because what was the point of that? But anyways, so we got the antenna covered. We got good coax cable covered. Now you're talking duplex. Okay, so yeah, you can go on Amazon like I did and buy an Amazon special, $80-$90, and then they ask you what frequencies you want programmed in there, and then you got to hope and pray that they tuned it and calibrated it right. I received mine, and I should have started a claim on the return. It came to me all dented up and shit, and I figured it would work. And then after a couple of testing, there's a video I did on desensing, and I might put that in the top comments, pin the comments. But, so now you're talking the duplexer, if your cheap end is about $80, and oops, I'm watching my kids on the sledding hill, and I just had one wipe out. And she got up, but she's limping. Uh-oh. I think she might want to come here. I don't know. I'm in a safe spot in the car. She's getting back up and going up the hill. That's my girl. So anyways, so you got your duplexer, and if you get it off of eBay, you got to hope and pray that they tune it up and calibrate it correctly for you. Otherwise, you're going to have all kinds of desense issues like I did, and not even be able to get more than half a block away. And what's the fun of that? So then you got to have a good transmit radio and a receive radio, unless you buy a commercial grade repeater, which then you're talking upwards of $500-$600 plus. And so when you're talking in a repeater standpoint, yes, you could make these 888s into repeaters, but what I was finding out in the issue is yeah, you could have a duplexer, but that's fine. Yeah, you can have a duplexer, but it does no good when the receive board is picking it up directly from the transmitter. When you're that close to each other, your receive radio automatically picks up your transmitter, even if you have a duplexer in line. And, there's no way to combat that unless you can get it far apart from each other. Well, now you're adding extra jumper cables in there for coax cables. I connected mine right to the duplexer, and come to find out that was a bad idea. Because the transmitter was bleeding out directly into the receiver right next to it. And, okay, so if you don't want to go the 888 route, well, now you're sinking money into mobile radios that cost anywhere from $80 to $200, and for what? The hopes and pray that somebody will talk to you. And then, not to mention, well, actually, I'm going to mention it. You got to remember, you got to have a way to power these things. So now you got to find a power supply. If you're cheap like me and had an old computer laying around, hack up an old power supply. Okay, good. Bada bing, bada boom. Now you got power. But if you don't have an old computer around, now you got to find a way to get power to it. And where with the radio box SNs, it's all right there. It's all right there. It's all included in the boxes when I was making them. And you actually were able to talk to somebody. I mean, granted, there are times where the network has dead times, but through a course of a week, you'll have better odds talking to somebody over the network than on a standalone repeater that you just put up. You could put all the advertisements out there on Facebook and get on the My GMRS listing, and God only knows whatever repeater database you want to get into. But does not mean that people are going to use your repeater, and I had that too, but I watched the struggles of a guy with an actual commercial grade repeater. He put up this tower in his backyard. He was sitting at about, I think it was 80 feet. He had a pretty good coverage range, but there was nobody that used it, that lived in the coverage range. So he did all this for what? He did it all for what? And then when I moved, I was like, well, there's no point in me putting up a repeater. I even went to the extent, okay, so I started with the simplex node, and that's what I recommend doing. Get yourself on any fucking network out there and get onto a network. Bring traffic to the airwaves. If somebody's sitting there and you've got people talking, they're gonna eventually use it. Just a grown-ass man decided to go down the hill. Oh, he brought his kids. Okay. But, so, if there's a more likelihood once you bring the traffic from the network to your area that somebody locally is going to hear that and try to use it. Well, at that point, you're kind of at a whim, like my guy George here. He has no idea what is going on. He has no idea what a repeater is. He has no idea what the simplex node is. He just knew that, and it confused him. It really confused him, and I can understand it. He went to Walmart. He bought himself these little bubble pack radios that said he can get 34 miles, but then he couldn't even get 5. He couldn't even get 3. And then I come along and I throw up my simplex node, and now he's hearing people in Texas and North Carolina and Hawaii and in Illinois, and he's all confused as to why he's being able to hear these people. Well, fortunately enough, because my simplex node is exactly that. It's a simplex node. It's not sitting, it wasn't up on a big tower or anything. So I was able to actually hear him on simplex and be able to communicate with him and got him a radio that's capable of transmitting into it. And if you're the type that's really stickler on the license, then sure, I could have talked him into buying a license, but I didn't. I just don't go for it, and that's my prerogative. It may not be yours. But, I don't want to see people throw their money at something that you're going to get little to no reward from. Okay, that's just my 2 cents. I'm putting this in there at about 10 minutes. Thanks for watching.